Hey guys, it is Thanksgiving Day week, and if you can't tell, it is snowing out here. Anyway, we've got a 3126 we're going to be looking at today for check engine light. And the biggest thing when I look at check engine lights is I try to not get preconceived ideas of what it could be, although I automatically do. It's like, oh, it's probably a HEUI pump or something, but what I try to do is just bring it in the shop, and then we're going to see what the heck it is, and then we're going to go through the troubleshooting, all right? So the first thing you want to do is take your key, or this thing. Let's see if it starts. It sure spins freely. It ain't starting, so that's great. So it won't start, but the real question is it still snowing outside? Yes, it would appear that it is. So let's get back to our engine here. So like I said, no preconceived notions, but it won't start. So first thing we're going to do is look at our logged codes and logged events. So logged diagnostic codes here. We have a vehicle speed loss of signal. That's not going to cause it not to start. If it was engine speed loss signal, that'd be something to worry about. We have injection actuation pressure, signal erratic, and output faults. And if you look at the first and last occurrences on the right, and then the diagnostic clock on the top, they have been happening recently. Next, we're going to go into logged events. Got a couple low oil pressure faults, just one occurrence though. And the more important thing is look at the injection actuation pressure system fault. Now the occurrences are 255. How many times has it occurred? We don't know, because 255 is the max count the ECM will count to, so it's at least that, and it's recent. So definitely, we do have some HEUI faults here. Okay, so we're going to crank this thing, but really what we're looking at is your desired is what it wants, and your actual injection actuation pressure is what it's building in the system while cranking. Now typically you need about 700 or 800 PSI for it to start. Let's see what this one's getting. Now if you look down there, we've got oil pressure, not a lot, we've only got about 10 PSI, but that should be enough supply to the HEUI pump. Now it's just not, it's not starting, so that really sucks. Now the injection actuation output is the amount of current the ECM sent into the HEUI pump, and that with 76 is actually like maxed out, not 100% on these, so something's wrong with the system. Either the injectors are leaking or the pumps failed, basically, are the most likely thing. So now we gotta figure out how to get this in the shop to work on it. So this is our 3126 Freightliner Brown, and it's got a new HEUI pump, or not new, but it's not the original. Now this thing has 270,000 miles on it, so it's got some miles on it for being a 3126. I checked the oil level, it's fine. Now how do I know it's maybe not a timing sensor problem or a fuel sensor problem? Well, there's no fuel sensor, but fuel pressure problem. Well, it might have other problems, but with it not building HEUI pressure, that needs to be addressed first. The timing sensors have nothing to do with it building HEUI pressure, neither does the fuel system. So we need to figure out that why, and gosh, I really don't have to pull this thing in the shop with it frickin' snowing and being so slushy outside. I'd really like it for it to start so I can just drag it in, but we'll see what happens. So we got her started here, and it's actually running pretty good now. I found something in the cab that may indicate what was helping them get it started, but I'm not going to say what it is, because in general I'm not a big fan of it, but it started the engine. Anyway, so let's do a little test called injection actuation pressure test. We're going to see, this will determine if the system will build pressure high enough. Look at that. It tried to bump it up to 1450. It's not even building it there. It's already at 76, which is max. See, it's just, yeah, something seriously wrong with this system. Either the HEUI pump or the injector's most likely sealed, so now we gotta troubleshoot it. Let's get her in the shop. So on a 3126 HEUI problem, there's generally 3 different causes it could be. We could have injector seals leaking, we could have a bad HEUI pump, or the HEUI pump driver itself. On the 3126s with the round top HEUI pumps, those are external and they can be changed, not on the square tops though. It does have a HEUI pressure sensor. It's very, very rare for the sensor to be the cause of the problem though. If we can't find anything else though, we can start troubleshooting the sensor itself. So we're gonna do the easiest troubleshooting first, and that entails testing the solenoid function here. And the first thing we'll do is ohm it out. So I had put that dummy wires there so we could ohm it out. And here's the specification for this style solenoid from Caterpillar. It has to be between 4 and 16 ohms. 10.8 ohms is what it measured out at. So right in the middle of specification. So our pump solenoid tests good, but that means electrically it tests good. It's also mechanical, so we need to test, and we're going to use that little block-off solenoid that Cat makes to test the function of the, well, basically bypass the solenoid, test the system without the control solenoid in place. Now, what I'm going to be using is some I've really grown to like, and it's not a crescent wrench. It's what I'd consider like the next step in crescent wrench technology. And it's not a crescent wrench. It's called a pliers wrench. Nipex makes these, and I've got a set of 3 of them. Now, if you're loosening really tight bolts or something, I don't recommend it, but I like using it on something like this because you can actually get a better grip on such a thin fastener that these little retaining nuts are. And especially between the solenoid and the pump housing. It's not super tight, but this thing will get a really good grip on it, and it'll break it loose without stripping it out. And it also has thinner jaws than a wrench will. So you have not better leverage, but you're going to have a less hard time getting a big old wrench in there than you would with this little tool. I'll put an Amazon link to them. They make a good Christmas present, just saying. But I really like them. I have the 8-inch, the 10-inch, and the 16-inch. Maybe I have the 10 and the 12 and the 16. But they're great. I recommend them. Anyway, so what are we doing? Why are we pulling the solenoid off? It tested good. Well, we're pulling off the solenoid to put that dummy one in. And the reason we're putting the dummy one in is because if you put the dummy one in and then crank the engine, and it starts and it builds max pressure, like 4,000 psi, you know your injector seals are good, and you know your HEUI pump's good. If it still doesn't build pressure, then you've basically ruled out that the solenoid was the cause. Then you know there's something wrong with the pump or with the injectors. Now, always put a bucket under this because it's basically going to drain the HEUI pump out once you pull the solenoid. You can see it's starting to leak already. But you kind of have to lead the solenoid portion on, well, the electrical solenoid portion on the entire solenoid, or you're going to have a hard time getting it out around that HEUI output line. Now notice quite a bit of oil is going to come out of there. It's quite normal. Now, these solenoids are about $200, so you're going to want to hang on to it. And there is a reman version you can get if it does turn out to be the solenoid itself. Generally, I'd say we do a lot of the solenoids. Probably about 50% of the time it's the solenoid, about 50% of the time it's the pump itself. So hard to say. Like I said, if you have the newer style with the square head, you can't change the solenoid. You have to change the whole pump, no matter what. Now we've got this block-off solenoid. This is, or block-off, well, I don't know what you want to call it, a fitting. Cat makes these for testing these systems. They're like $30 or $40. And this is not a head bolt. You don't have to run it in with your impact. I'm just going to use the pliers wrench here to snug it down. It doesn't have to be super tight. I just basically run it until it's, tight. It's probably like 20 foot-pounds or maybe even less than that. And then we're going to test the system. Now, in the shop, there was something I've never seen before in our shop. A chicken. I don't know where this chicken came from. Apparently it walked in one of the bay doors from one of the neighbors' houses, but now watch the blue line. Look at that. 4,700 right away. Now I changed out the solenoid for one I actually have spare new in my box and cranked on it. And look, built pressure right away and started up. Now that might just be a fluke. We also need to do that test I did earlier to check the pressure at the different levels. So if you remember before, we did this test and it didn't build up any pressure really past the first stop. So it's warm now. It's about 150 degrees, which is warm enough. We don't need to get it to 200 degrees really, but I did it cold and it worked fine, so we're gonna test it again now. So that was good, that was good. Now you see how fast it's going, jumping, and it's sticking right with that pressure and it's not maxed out at 76%. I'd say it's good. This customer, they got pretty lucky here with this just being that solenoid. A lot of times it's something with the injector seals or the pump itself, but those solenoids as well do fail, so it's good for them. It's a much cheaper fix, obviously, than any of the other repairs, so. So I can't really tell, but it's still snowing. A lot of it melted off the roads and stuff, so that's good. So what did we learn today? Well, we met our newest employee, our first poultry-based employee. We also got this truck fixed for pretty cheap, actually. And I showed you those Knipex, or as I guess it's properly pronounced in German, Knipex, or Knipex, and I just say Knipex. Anyway, they're pretty awesome. I've been using them for a while. I really don't even use crescent wrench hardly ever anymore. The only time would be is if you can't get those in, since they're kind of a plier base, or they're offset, opposed to like a crescent wrench, which is straight, obviously. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Time for Destruction of the Week. Thanks for watching. This week's Destruction of the Week is from our buddy RT, and it's a C7. Said it was driving down the road and just stopped. And they brought it in, wouldn't build oil pressure, which caused the HEUI system not to work and would cause it to shut off. Look what they found. Kind of hard to tell, but the oil pump just kind of exploded. Not sure exactly why, but they lucked out. All it needed was the oil pump. Everything else was fine.